Hey guys, it's Lua and welcome to my first ever book haul. Today, we are being a good consumer. We are being what America wants us to be. It's very disappointing, actually, but the fact of the matter is I have a big ol' stack of books here to haul today. Essentially, I have collected these books over the past 3 months or so. A lot of them were gifts, a lot of them I got with money or gift cards I got over the holidays, and that's why I was able to accumulate so many books. This is not typically as many books as I'm bringing in on a typical 3-month basis, but being I have them, I figure let's haul them. And although these books have been with me for a bit of time now, they've been in the background of a lot of my videos, I'm new here on BookTube. So that means it doesn't matter how long I've had these books, I can haul them whenever I want to. That's just it. I don't make the rules. Even if I did, I wouldn't follow them. That being said, let's just jump right on into it. Alrighty, so the first 2 books I'm hauling are The Graces and The Curses by Laura Eve. Essentially, the story behind this is I saw this beautiful book at a bargain outlet for like $3. I bought it not knowing that it's actually the second book in a series, so I had to go and get the first one now. And actually, from what I've heard about these books via BookTube, they get kind of mixed reviews. I usually don't hear very much super positive. It's usually just like they were okay type energy. But regardless, let's read a little synopsis we got on here, huh? So, The Graces and the Curses. It's a YA fantasy following a family of teenage witches. A new girl comes to town, they kind of just take her under their wing, and she ends up being more powerful than they ever imagined. And on Goodreads, these books were actually compared to The Craft and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and The Craft is my favorite movie ever, and I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I'm hoping it will give me those vibes and make me feel as good as that, but I'm not sure. But since I have both, I'm committed to reading both. I want to be able to keep these because they're so beautiful. Yeah, but I probably wouldn't read these books till like the spooky season anyway. But for now, they're hanging out with me. Next, I got another series. Over like the holiday season, I reread Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I read it back in high school, I loved it. I reread it, I loved it again. So I decided to continue on with the series and I bought Hollow City and Library of Souls. I know this is like a 6-book series. I don't know if I will be committed enough to read on through all 6 books, but maybe at least the first 3. See the vibes, see if I'm still loving it as much as the first one, because I adore the little creepy aesthetic they got going on. I'll give like a mini synopsis of this just because I think a lot of people either have already read these or I don't know. I know they've been out a while. I'm playing catch up in terms of BookTube favorites. I'm behind the times and I know it. But anyway, these books essentially follow our main character Jacob. When his grandpa mysteriously dies, he goes on an adventure to find the people from his grandpa's outlandish tales and pictures, and I just love the whimsy of these books. I love the aesthetic. I just have a good fun time reading them. I think they're so cool. I don't really care if it's potentially for a younger audience. I read what I want. Anyway, next I read Voices in the Snow. I read that around January, February. I read this because I got this for Christmas. Adored it. So in the meantime, I hauled Secrets in the Dark. I didn't get a chance to read it yet. It's actually on my TBR for this month. I hope I love it. Actually, both Secrets in the Dark and the second book of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, they're both on my TBR this month. But a little synopsis of Voices in the Snow and Secrets in the Dark. It's an apocalyptic winter setting. The main character, Claire, was trying to get to safety before the storm, but instead she finds herself waking up in a gothic mansion with a strange man, bruises all over her body, and she's convinced there's something lurching in the dark corners that's trying to kill her. You kind of see the mystery of it all play out and her trying to survive throughout all of this as well. I gave the first book 5 out of 5 stars. I adored it and I can't wait to read the next one. Next, I hauled Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. I don't feel I can fully bring this book justice by saying just a little description of my own, so I'm going to read the synopsis on the back. In her electrifying debut, Carmen Maria Machado blithely demolishes the borders between psychological realism and science fiction, comedy and horror, fantasy, and fabulism. Here are 8 startling stories that map the realities of women's lives and the violence visited upon their bodies. Earthly and otherworldly, antic and sexy, queer and caustic, comic and deadly serious, Her Body and Other Parties enlarges the possibilities of contemporary fiction. This sounds really cool to me, and I'm just so excited to read this. Like, I've heard a bit mixed reviews, but mostly positive on this book, so I'm hoping I love it. It sounds like something I really would love. All right, next book. This is a weird one, and I know it. So it is The Collector by John Fowles. It is actually coined as the first modern psychological thriller. A little synopsis of it. Essentially, it follows a lonely clerk who has a hobby of collecting butterflies. He becomes obsessed with this young art student and begins to look at her as one of these butterflies, look at her as something he can make his own. He abducts her, essentially. And you follow the story of that. It sounds absolutely chaotic. It reminds me a bit of like The Wasp Factory, for anyone who's read that. I love that book. Chaotic energy in both of these, but I'm excited in a weird way. Next book, My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Mashve. I've heard such good things about this, and it seems like it's one of those books that pretty much no plot, just vibes. She's essentially sleeping her year away. I'm going to read the synopsis because that's going to describe it better than I ever could. Our narrator should be happy, shouldn't she? She's young, thin, pretty, a recent Columbia graduate, works an easy job at a hip art gallery, lives in an apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, paid for, like the rest of her needs, by her inheritance. But there's a hole in her heart. And it isn't just the loss of her parents or the way her Wall Street boyfriend treats her or her sadomasochistic relationship with her best friend Riva. It's the year 2000 in a city aglitter with wealth and possibility. What could be so terribly wrong? Both tender and blackly funny, merciless and compassionate, My Year of Rest and Relaxation is a powerful answer to that question and a showcase for the gifts of one of our major writers working at the height of her powers. So I feel like that didn't even do a good job describing it. Truly, from what I know, she decides to take a year off from life and spends it sleeping away in bed and tucked away from everybody. Next book, I hauled Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. I actually read this book, and unfortunately, I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. Like, the first part of it literally takes place in a mental hospital, and that is usually a 5-star read for me from the jump. I love that shit. But it just didn't do it for me. There were certain things that I really disliked, but I'll be talking about it more in my March wrap-up, so if you're interested, check that out. But a brief synopsis of it, as I said, begins in a mental hospital, and it follows our main character Charlie after her suicide attempt. The book unpacks her trauma, follows her recovery, and what her life's like when she leaves the institution. And as I said, didn't completely love it, but I like the concept. Next book that I hauled, which is actually also on my TBR this month, is The Virgin Suicide by Jeffrey Eugenides. I really adore the cover on this one too. This book follows the consecutive deaths of the 5 Lisbon sisters, and the boys in town become completely captivated with their deaths and want to figure out the mystery behind it. That's pretty much the book. They're unraveling the mystery of their deaths, figuring out what happened to their sisters and what made them all choose to end their life. I didn't start it yet, and I honestly consider this one a 5-star prediction. I have always felt like I would love this book. We're gonna see. I also grabbed the Once and Future Witches, which, look at that cover. Are you kidding me? I'm really excited for this. It's 100% going to be on my TBR this fall. I've heard from everybody it definitely has a big October energy. Let me read the synopsis. In 1893, there's no such thing as witches. There used to be, in the wild dark days before the burnings began, but now witching is nothing but tidy charms and nursery rhymes. If the modern woman wants any measure of power, she must find it at the ballot box. But when the Eastwood sisters, James Juniper, Agnes Amaranth, and Beatrice Belladonna, join the suffragists of New Salem, they begin to pursue the forgotten words and ways that might turn the women's movement into the witches' movement. Stalked by shadows and sickness, hunted by forces who will not suffer a witch to vote, and perhaps not to even live, the sisters will need to delve into the oldest magics, draw new alliances, and heal the bond between them if they want to survive. I love the sound of this. I love anything with a good witch in it. Like, I love a good witchy book. There's just not much more to say on that. It's no question why I hauled it. I love the cover. I love the deckled edges. I love the concept. I hope it's 5 stars for me. Next book I'm hauling is Docile by K.M. Sparza. And I have wanted this book for so long. Probably since I first heard about it in like 2018, I want to say. I was obsessed with the concept of it. So essentially, this book is a science fiction novel that is under the notion that there is no consent under capitalism. In order to pay off family debts, people essentially become sex slaves to the wealthy and powerful members of society, and we're following our main character who is in that position. This book sounds anti-capitalistic, it sounds chaotic, it sounds weird, and for that I've been obsessed ever since, and I cannot wait to read it. Next book I'm hauling is So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Jon Ronson. This is another one of those books that the minute I heard about it, I just wanted to read so bad. This book is a nonfiction book that delves into the whole concept of public shaming or cancel culture. I'll read the synopsis, but I think you get most of the vibes just from that alone. For the past 3 years, Jon Ronson has traveled the world meeting recipients of public shamings, often while their shamings are in full force. These are people like us, people who say, made a joke on social media that came out badly. Once a transgression is revealed, collective outrage circles with the force of a hurricane, and the next thing they know, they're being torn apart for it, jeered at, demonized, and fired from their jobs. A great renaissance of public shaming is sweeping our land. The silence are getting a voice. What are we doing with our voice? We are being merciless. Ronson's journey results in the entertaining and eye-opening book about public shaming and about shaming as a form of social control. I don't know. I just think it's such an interesting topic to explore, so that's why I got it. Alright, next book I'm hauling, I am beyond excited for. As soon as I heard about this book and the chaos that everyone says comes along with it, I knew I was reading it. It was no question. And that book is A Bunny by Mona Awad. At this point, do I even need to give a synopsis? Probably not. Nobody will shut up about this book, but I will give a little synopsis regardless. It follows a girl who is a bit of an outsider at her university. Everything changes though when she receives an invitation from a group of girls who call themselves Bunny to join them at their smut salon. And I hear it's very culty and insane. I love that. I can't wait to read it. So the last and final book I'm hauling today is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Probably saying that wrong. This one is basically about a woman who seemingly has the perfect life. She randomly one day decides gonna murder her husband. So she's sent into a mental institution, and she won't speak on the incident or give any explanation to it whatsoever. Criminal psychologist pursues her story and is out to get her to tell her truth. So that's what this whole book is about. I heard it's also extremely chaotic. I can't wait for it. I love a book that brings amazing chaotic energy, and that's what all of these are doing for me. I can't wait to read these, guys. But that's all the books I'm hauling for today. I'm very excited. I can't wait. If you're interested in seeing my reactions to any of them, definitely subscribe to me. Keep an eye out with what I got going on. That's really that. Thanks for watching.